Section 3.5. In this section, you will be given a question like this. Circle one clef for each scale to form minor scales. In these questions, you are given a scale without the clef. What you will have to do is to try the clefs one by one until you find the correct one. You will have to have a very good understanding of key signatures and especially minor scales. Take the first question as an example. Let's say we put a treble clef there, and now we potentially have a G flat minor scale. Looking at the key signature table, do we even have a G flat minor key? Well, the answer is no. So in this case, we can immediately rule out the treble clef, because that just results in a non-existent key according to the key signature table. And we move on to the next clef, the bass clef. If we put a bass clef here, that potentially makes it a B flat minor scale. Now, looking at the key signature table, we do have a B flat minor in the fifth column, and accordingly, it's supposed to have B, E, A, D, and G flats. Now, let's cross-check this with the scale. Do we have a B flat? Yes, we do. Do we have an E flat? We do. And A flat? We don't. But in this case, it's actually fine because it's the seventh note of the scale, which means in a harmonic scale setting, this can be raised by one semitone. So A flat can become an A natural. So that's absolutely fine. And the next one, a D flat. Do we have a D flat? Yes, we do have a D flat. And lastly, do we have a G flat? Yes, we also have a G flat. So in this case, the correct answer is indeed the bass clef because it makes it a B flat minor scale, and specifically a harmonic minor scale because the seventh note has been raised in this case. The same approach applies to the next question. Let's try the treble clef first. If we put the treble clef here, that makes it potentially a G minor scale. And according to the key signature table, a G minor lies in the second column and is supposed to have two flats, the B flat and the E flat. Do we have any of these flats here? Well, we don't. So in this case, we can immediately move on to the next clef. And now if we have a bass clef here, this makes it potentially a B minor scale. And according to the key signature table, it's in the second column and is supposed to have the F sharp and the C sharp. Now looking at the scale, do we have the F sharp and C sharp? Neither do we, even though we have other sharps, the G sharp and the A sharp. But that doesn't make it correct, and we can move on. The next clef is an alto clef, and I hope you still remember how to read them. The middle C lies in the third line from the top. So in this case, we start with the note A, which is also to say it's potentially an A minor scale. Looking at the key signature grid, for A minor we have nothing, so we don't expect any sharp or flats. However, in this scale we do have some sharps, and particularly in the 6th and 7th notes, both are raised by one semitone. And if you still remember, in the case of an ascending melodic minor scale, the 6th and 7th notes are indeed raised by one semitone. So in this case, it actually makes it a correct scale, specifically the ascending A melodic minor scale. And so we can circle the alto clef as our correct answer. And the last question, the same logic, treble clef first, and this makes it potentially an A minor scale again. However, it now has flats as well. So it doesn't quite make sense because in the A minor scale, by default, it doesn't have any sharp or flats. And even when it does have accidentals, it's just going to be sharps, but never flats. So in this case, we can rule out the treble clef already. And next, we try the bass clef, which now makes it potentially a C minor scale. Looking at the key signature grid, for C minor, it's in the third column, and we're supposed to have B, E, and A flats. Let's cross-check this with the scale. Do we have a B flat? Well, in this case, we have a B sharp. And at this point, we can already tell that it's a wrong scale, because B sharp cannot go to a C, as they are just an harmonic equivalent, and this is not really allowed in any scales. And so we can just move on to the next clef, the alto clef. For alto clef, this makes it potentially a B minor scale, And looking at the key signature grid, for B minor, it lies in the second column and is supposed to have F sharp and C sharp. Again, let's cross-check this with the scale. Do we have F sharp and C sharp? Well, we don't. In fact, we even have 2 flats here, which is impossible for a key that is only supposed to have sharp accidentals. And so in this case, we can just move on to the tenor clef, the last option. And I hope you still remember how to read the tenor clef, where the middle C lies in the second line from the top. And in this case, this makes the first note a G. And therefore, we are looking for a G minor in the key signature grid. And so in the grid, the G minor lies in the second column, and it has B flat and E flat. Let's check this in the scale. Do we have a B flat? Yes, we do. And do we have an E flat? Yes, we also have an E flat. What about the sharp there? The F sharp in this case? Well, that makes sense, because in the context of a harmonic minor scale, we do raise the 7th note. And so, in this case, the tenor clef makes it a proper G harmonic minor scale. And that's the answer. So that's how you tackle this question. It's not a particularly tricky question, as long as you know how to use the key signature grid correctly and follow the steps consistently as we did. And of course, you also have to have a good grasp of the minor scales as well, including the ascending and descending melodic scales and the harmonic scale. If you're looking for some more practice, I'll highly recommend that you visit this interactive site where I've put together a lot of practice tests and mock papers with instant feedback. In the drill mode, you'll have access to all the questions section by section, so that you can focus on specific question types and practice them until you feel confident. There are virtually unlimited questions. In the exam mode, you have access to full papers in the exact format of the exam, with randomized questions each time. You have 2 hours to finish the complete paper, at the end of which you'll be given your score and feedback.